Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Coptic Blood is Not Cheap. We are so honored today to have with us Caroline Dos, who is an advocate and a voice for Coptic Christians all over the world. She's also an attorney and a mother of two beautiful young girls who I had the privilege to meet earlier today. Caroline, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this issue.
Yes, yeah. We hope today to have a real candid conversation so we can better understand what's happening and also what it means to us wherever we live as Coptic Christians. You know, I just was reading a New York Times article earlier today, and they were saying how the Christians for decades were sort of keeping their ground and staying quiet in Egypt to sort of accept whatever freedoms or rights that they might have, little as they may be. And then now they just can't take it anymore. So there's a real, very clear shift and movement in the behavior of our Coptic brothers and sisters in Egypt. What do you think of what's happening?
It is amazing, actually. You're right. Over, I would say, the last couple of years, you've seen a lot more of the protests and the rallies and the riots in Egypt. And it could be really for several reasons. It's probably a combination of things. One, there's definitely an increased violence in Egypt. Over the past decade, we've seen that very steady rise in the number of incidents and the persecutions against Coptic Christians. And you've also seen their intensity definitely just escalate so quickly. In the last few years, you've seen mob attacks of large Muslim groups. You have Alexandria in October 2005 when they attacked a church, a mob of up to 10,000. And then you have...
Oh boy.
Right. And
10,000, a mob of 10,000 Muslim attacked a church in 2005.
That was in October 2005 over some DVD. There was a movie that some Coptic youth had put together about a Coptic youth who was lured to Islam and then returned to Christianity. And apparently the DVD had sparked mass riots and the Muslims had attacked the church in October 2005. That event actually was very widely covered by many news agencies all over the world, actually. And I do remember reading articles about it, even in the New York Times. So I think that that escalation of violence and also incitement of violence in Egypt is a huge problem now. I actually just read a press release by the United States Commission on Religious Freedom, December 1st, 2010, it came out. And it spoke about the problem that of the media in Egypt and the problem of the Islamic clerics who intentionally and publicly incite violence against Coptic Christians. And the United States Commission on Religious Freedom, the USCIRF for short, was actually recommending to Egypt that they should somehow admonish or punish or fire these clerics that do this. And something a lot of people don't know and a lot of youth don't know is that in Egypt, all of the major mosques have government-paid Muslim clerics working in the mosque. So technically, these are government-paid employees that are actually inciting violence against Coptic Christians. So you're getting this different atmosphere now than you were seeing maybe 10 years ago in Egypt. You're seeing the incitement of violence in the media by the clerics on the loudspeakers on a daily basis. You're seeing the increase of the violence against Coptic Christians, which also means the increase of lack of prosecutions of those people who are perpetrating those crimes. So Coptic people are reaching a new level of persecution, a new level of frustration.
Our Christian brothers and sisters are out there, they're on the streets, and you know, one of the things that was saying in the New York Times article was it hasn't stopped at the, you know, the incident and the event or even just those in the hospitals, but people are flooding the streets. Christians are coming out in large numbers, but a lot of them are getting, you know, tear gassed. Some of them are getting detained. Some of them, I'm sure, are getting, you know, physically, you know, assaulted on some level to be, you know, taken away from the scene of what, you know, wherever they're rioting. And so they're getting hurt. I mean, is that the right? I don't want to say is that the right approach, but is that what we're at now? Do we want to just, you know, tell them to go out into the streets and just let their voices be heard?
That's a very good point, Maura. Actually, I think that's part of, that goes back to your first question. I think that's part of what's fueling them, actually. Because when they do go out there and protest and rally, instead of getting, yeah, we are going to do something about this, we do hear you, they get tear gas. They get stones thrown back at them. So not only are they being ignored, but they're being punished for expressing their opinion. So naturally, what will you feel? More frustration, more anger. So you are dealing with human beings who are feeling that everywhere they look, there's a block. And now when I just want to talk about it, I get a brick thrown at my head.
You know, even recently, the incident that happened after the bombing, where, you know, the Egyptian man, Christian man on the train, many of you probably heard about this, and I'm sure you've read it. It was also covered in the New York Times, among other, you know, media. He was shot as the Muslim gentleman walked across the train, I believe screaming, you know, Allahu Akbar, and after he was shot, his wife was also shot, and 3 others were also injured. So he's now, you know, he's died, and 4 people have been, you know, injured. Yet interestingly, even in our own media coverage in the New York Times, they said they couldn't confirm that the incident was related to religious tension. Which, you know, I have to say, when I read that, I was like, boy, you know, you go to the Egyptian government and they say, these are all individual, non-related issues related to, you know, maybe land disputes or just personal arguments. And then in our own media, which, you know, I understand they can't make things up, but they say, well, it's not really confirmed that this is related to religious tension. How does that affect?
Well, I think it's something that they're not shocked at, because they're accustomed to seeing their own government put the blame somewhere else. Like in the incident where the church was bombed on New Year's Eve, the first thing they can think of was someone else did it. Al-Qaeda did it. Whenever something happens, they're very quick to point the finger somewhere else. No, like you said, this is a land dispute. No, this was a situation between a Christian and a Muslim, a private problem that then escalated to something else. So they're always very quick to point the blame somewhere else, and it's not surprising that the international media may use that when they're reporting on the event. Because the Egyptian government and the Egyptian media is basically drilled to find some other excuse other than it is a problem. And it's odd because the whole entire world sees it as a problem. All the world leaders, many, not all, but many world leaders have commented on what's happening in Egypt. From Australia to Canada to the UK, and of course here to the United States. Obama recognized it as an attack on Christians.
Oh, really?
Right, the event, the
I wasn't aware of that.
The bombing that occurred on New Year's Eve, Obama made a statement from Honolulu, Hawaii, when he was on vacation, actually. And he made a statement that this was an attack that clearly targeted Christians.
Oh, well, that's the first I heard of that, because I sort of felt from the little that I knew about his response that he just wasn't saying much. But I'm glad he you know, I'm glad he came out and boldly said that. That's very, very important.
It is important. I mean, he did say that he felt that they were clearly targeting Christians, but he didn't say who was targeting the Christians. That's the second part that we need. We need to figure out, you know, who to blame. Obviously, everyone else can see that it's the Egyptian government that was responsible for this. That is the climate in the country, the climate of extremism.
Yeah, it sounds like that really is the key now. It's like it's almost like when you look at the media out there, I mean, just anyone out there, run a Google search. You know, just put Egypt news and get all the recent articles, and you'll see it. So no one could deny anymore what's happening and who it's happening to. But I guess you're addressing an important point, which is who's responsible. Because if we can address who's responsible, we can confirm and agree upon who we need to hold accountable. And we're going to stop there for just a minute. I was just thinking, you know, it's like if they don't have the rights and opportunities that they should have, like the Muslim, you know, brothers and sisters, then they come here, they're less educated maybe, or they don't have as many opportunities to have advanced there. So they start here and they're not quite where they could have been. And gosh, it just seems like, it seems difficult. And we know that, you know, we say Christ is the hope of the hopeless. So we do want to encourage, you know, our brother. Well, can you give a word of hope or encouragement for these people who do make it over here and they miss their family over there and they don't necessarily want to be here? What do you say to your clients? Because I know, you know, you do immigration law.
It is something actually that I deal with when I am consulting with the client. And I do find myself in that position where I feel like I need to console the person in front of me. I feel like they're so sometimes broken that I'm almost azzying them because they're telling me about all that they lost. And really the only thing I can think of to make them feel better is, don't worry, I'll do my best to at least legalize you here so that you have a safe place to live. And so for those who are married, you can bring your spouse and you can bring your children, and at least they'll be safe from the immediate danger. But that's really the only thing you can do. The only thing you can do is help them secure safety here.
It's undeniable, okay? We all out there know what's been happening. And it's not just recent. It wasn't just last Christmas of 2010, and it wasn't just the bombing of New Year's in January 1st of 2011. We're talking about, like you said, a long-standing, systematic venue of discrimination and just violence, really, and attacks that are happening to our Coptic brothers and sisters. These are guys out there, you know, Caroline, you know this, and I just reminding us, these are real people. These are young and old, men and women, children, grandparents, married people, single people, every one of our brothers and sisters out there, you're representing them here. And they're suffering. I mean, they're really suffering. This is not just a talk. This is not just a conversation for us to inform ourselves or feel better that we are informed. These people are dying. Literally, they are dying. And we need to do something. I mean, what is your call to action? What are your thoughts on some next steps for us?
That's something that everybody needs to think about. And as you may be, you know, starting to see, there are Coptic organizations out there that are struggling to try and lobby our Congress and get that issue out there so that our Congress here can address the issue so that we can actually begin to formally point that finger at Egypt through our Congress that you are a human rights violator and you're not going to continue to get that aid if you continue down this path. So it's up to those people that are watching today and those people that you can reach. You need to work together. You need to reach out to those community leaders. You need to reach out to, if there's an active person in your church, if you have access to the internet, which everyone does, go online and look at those Coptic organizations, see what they're doing, see where they're heading, see what their mission statements are. And if you're interested in joining, contact them, support them, because only when we begin to organize with one another will we begin to figure out what it is that we can do. And another thing which people don't really like to talk about is a lot of these organizations, so they can do what they need to do, they need to hire publicists, lobbyists, full-time staff. So we need to financially support them the way we financially support other things that we're interested in.
Right.
Otherwise, they won't run.
Right.
So if you want to hire a lobbyist to represent your interest, whatever it is, you have to pay him a salary.
Right.
So we need to begin to organize ourselves and contact our congressmen, send out those letters, make those phone calls, contribute to people's organizations that are lobbying down in DC so that we can do something about it.
I want to remind viewers out there, there is a website already set up, and it is a very straightforward and simple way to send a petition which describes our concerns to your local elected officials, okay? Write this down. It'll appear on the screen for you. It's www.betterlifeforegypt.wordpress.com. I believe it's a .com, and we'll make sure it's correct on the screen for you. You go there, you put your information, put your zip code, and it'll automatically populate letters to all the elected officials in your area, wherever you're from. That's just one direct step that everyone could take. And you know what? You could send it to your friends, your neighbors, anyone, because it's a way to educate them in the meantime as well.
That's right, Maura. Yeah. I think if each person just even did one thing, just one thing, you know, activate yourself. You're worried about these people, you feel bad for them, don't forget about it and wake up the next day and continue on your own way. Do one thing, write that letter, hop online, do that petition. If you go online, you'll find this petition, you'll find other petitions. Do something, make a phone call, call your representative and ask to meet them. They will meet you. Just ask. It doesn't hurt to ever ask.
We heard of a situation just in New Jersey where one of the elected officials there got so many letters or petitions regarding this matter. He actually publicly voiced his concern already.
That's right. Congressman Albio Sears from Jersey City, Bayonne, he made a statement on the floor in Congress, January 21st, 2010, right after the Christmas Eve attack. And that was probably because he got letters and phone calls and visits from the Coptic Christian community to his office. I believe it was in Bayonne. So that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Just those phone calls and those letters caused this person to get up and make a statement in front of the entire Congress.
Wow.
About what happened in Congress. And Congress is looking to hear from you.
Right.
If you don't vocalize your opinion, they'll never know. Instead of having 2,000 Coptic people in the United States working for this cause, imagine you had 200,000 working for this cause. Just 5 minutes a week each, what we could do. It's not even a lot. If you're not interested in joining an organization or reaching out to other people around you, go online, sign a petition, make a phone call, send a letter, something you can do in your own home without really being barely inconvenienced, but will go a long way. If 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 of us did that, 5 minutes a month, imagine the impact that would have. So that when we do have a congressional hearing, guess what? Everything will be determined in our favor. Actually, speaking of congressional hearings.
Yes, I was going to ask you. I remember you said very soon there's a hearing coming up.
That's right. Next week, January 20th, there is a congressional hearing on the Christians in Iraq and Egypt.
Oh, so what is a congressional hearing? Just you know, for those of us who are not familiar, just the breakdown of what it is and what can we do if where is it taking place? Should we go?
Well, it's taking place in Washington, D.C., and for the purpose of it is to essentially have experts express what the issue is in Egypt and what it is that we're looking for to two different congressmen. So that's an opportunity.
I believe also the website many of you have heard of, which is the CopticWorld.org. If you haven't logged in, if you haven't set up an account, please do so. That is one other venue where we can all unite and at least know who we are, how many we are, and then begin to unite ourselves for some of these very, very important causes. Now, we're going to come to a close of this program in just a minute here, but there are two other things that I think, Carol, you wanted to share. I know it was the Free Copts and the January 23rd event, so please.
Actually, back to the online petitions, there's also another online petition on freecopts.net. Freecopts.net. And Free Copts is a great website because it's also able to supply you with a lot of that on the ground. They have on the ground reporters that go out there, take pictures, interview victims, so they get a lot of that great information there. Unfortunately, a lot of it is in Arabic that hasn't been translated into English. There is a good amount of stuff in English, but I would say a good chunk of it, the really amazing stuff like the interviews and things like that in Arabic. But on their website, they do have a petition that they put together thanking Pope Benedict for the statements he made in support of the Coptic people in Egypt. And it's important to say thank you to those people that go out of their way to publicly recognize that there is a problem in Egypt and to publicly support us. So to get that support from Pope Benedict, from the Catholic Church, it's amazing. It's great. Hop online, thank him. He's an ally, and it helps, obviously, to express to your ally, we're behind you, and we really, really appreciate the fact that you spoke out publicly on our behalf.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he wasn't thanked by the Egyptian government for the words that he said either, yet he did speak them boldly. And Carol, it's been great having you here today.
Thank you.
Are there any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to share with our viewers today?
Yes. Well, the most important thing is not just understanding the problem, but being willing to do something about the problem. Because understanding it won't cure it. But understanding it and combining it with activity, then we'll begin to actually see a change. So it's important, I can't stress it enough, don't turn your TV off and forget about it. Don't feel that you did enough by watching, because it isn't enough. Educating yourself and talking about it with your friends is not enough. Picking up the phone when you're having that time together with your family and putting each person on the phone to call that congressman, that's enough. That's great. Sending that letter, dropping it in the fax machine, starting a little group if you're in college with the college kids in your church. When you're in your church, you have a lot of time, through different youth meetings and things like that, to discuss these things. Make it a topic of interest. Because it really is something that seriously concerns us. As we serve the poor, as we serve the homeless, as we serve the people who are medically needy, we need to serve the persecuted. And they're just as worthy of service as all the other groups.
Absolutely.
They're no less.
Absolutely.
In fact, those people, for me personally, really hit me in my heart, because they're not the victims of circumstance like poverty or illness. They're the victims of intentional crimes, the victims of crimes of their own countrymen.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so sad.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. And for all of us out there, let's continue to really put these things in prayer, and in our liturgies, to offer up our hearts and really pray for wisdom, for the leaders of our church, for all those who are being persecuted day in and day out. And remind one another that our Lord, as it says in our liturgy, is the help of the helpless and the hope of the hopeless. He who was persecuted without cause, without reason, beyond anything any of us could imagine. And we look to him for our next steps and for true justice to be served. That's our segment today with Coptic Blood is Not Cheap, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us.